Wayzgoose 2018, Making Wood Type the Old Way.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. So the title of this thing is Dr. Strange Font and How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Make Chromatic Type, and it was put together by a coworker with me, Jim Greishaber, who's my resident type designer extraordinaire. And we presented this at TypeCon, but I thought I would just recycle this presentation. And all that worrying, there was a lot of worrying when we started to try to make chromatic. So this is a photo of my shop, and you can see there's some patterns on the table, and the pantographs at the back and the type saws at the back. But that's not so here is a photo of, on the right is an existing pattern. That's a sans serif, I think probably number 5 by Stevenson Blake. And the photo on the left are boxes of patterns. And it's one of the things that I feel is the greatest asset of my company is that I have the patterns that are from American Wood Type Manufacturing Company out of Long Island City, New York. And I have hundreds of patterns. And what I've learned as I've had them for quite a while, and particularly working with the amazing type knowledge person of the world, David Shields, is that I have patterns from many, many wood type manufacturing companies. So I have type from Empire Wood Type out of New York City. I have Acme out of New York City, Allied out of New York City. You're going to hear a pattern here. Everything's out of New York City. And the original company, American Wood Type Manufacturing Company out of New York City. And they were the resellers of Stevenson Blake, so that's why I have the sans serif number 5, because that's a Stevenson Blake pattern, which are absolutely beautiful to look and hold, and they're stamped right on the foot, so you know it's Stevenson Blake. Here is a photo of how we actually make new patterns. I used to draw them in Illustrator, but now that Jim is part of the company, everything's drawn in Font Lab, Font Lab Studio, excuse me, since I don't use it, I don't know the program. And so he draws them, and so they're a font when he's done. So I have all these digital fonts also when Jim is done, completed drawing them. And this was part of a replacement letter project for a client, and we liked it and thought it was interesting enough to make all the letters and start offering this font at Virgin Wood Type. This is my laser company I go to and get my vector files turned into patterns. They have amazing lasers there that cut things like so fast you can't imagine. And they actually the price of it is like as much as I can get the wood that they're cutting, and it's cut and I pick it up and it's pretty amazing. And they're a great bunch of artistic folks and give us other artistic folks a good price. So this is a picture of a pattern getting made. So we need to have the patterns at a specific height to clamp into our machine, and also to be able to trace them when we're cutting the pattern. And learned that this is an extremely crucial part of the wood type making process, is making the patterns as absolutely perfectly as you can, so that our baselines line up and the type can be made consistently. So then after the patterns are mounted, we're at the Hammond trim saw trimming up the patterns. We use our Hammond in so many steps of making wood type. This is a picture of what I call blanks being made. So the wood gets, basically the wood The way we make wood type pie, which is it's probably the hardest process in making wood type. So the first thing we do is we cut the wood up into what I call billets, and you're seeing some billets there, and then we sand it. We sand the surface. And that has become harder to do than I could ever imagine, because if you sand one spot a little too much, then that's a low spot in your wood type. So that's the key. That's the hard part. Then it gets put on a very specialized machine that I have that is a Vandercook machine. It's called a Vandercook block leveler, and I have Big Daddy. Scott Moore, if you listen to his presentation, he's got baby block leveler. I've got the Big Daddy. It's a big machine. It's a pretty wonderful machine to see running. This is, some stuff that's been made into specific size. So I forgot to tell you about that. So after we've, block leveled it, we sand it, we block level it, then we coat it with shellac. And we do a little different than Scott does. So we shellac with brushes, and then we sand down, and then we do we do 3 coats, and then on the 3rd coat we burnish with steel wool. So that's how we make our little, what I call blanks, and then they go on the trim saw and get cut into the size type we're making. So it's either 8-line or 10-line or 6-line. So this is my machine. And it's an overhead view, and way off to the right you can see the pattern. Again, that's a Stevenson Blake pattern again. And then way over to the left, near where the light is. I wish I had a little laser pointer. That's where the wood is being cut. So this is a Pantograph Router from American Wood Type Manufacturing Company again, and my machine is very different than Hamilton's or Scott Moore's. My machine has a kind of a platen, I'm going to call it, where the wood gets clamped into it, and it's sitting on 2 sets of rails with open-ended ball bearings in it. And so my platen moves to those pantograph arms, and as I'm tracing the letter forms. So my cutting bit is stationary, and the platen is moving around it. And it makes a very extremely clean edge. I learned through David McMillan that there's a number of metal engraving routers that out of Switzerland, that were made out of Switzerland, that were made this way also. So there's just a close-up of, what I call followers following along the edge of the pattern. And then this is a close-up of where it's the letters getting cut from the router bit. And then once we've cut a letter, goes back on the Hammond, gets trimmed down, and that's another crucial spot where you're using your knowledge as someone who sets type to trim letters. And how I will describe that is on that R, I would probably trim tighter next to the ball of the R than I would on the right side of it where the serifs are, because there's all that open area around the ball of the R. So again, that's all done by the art of, knowing letter forms and how type should be made. And there they are once they've been trimmed. Once we've cut type, I have like a shop that's in a detached garage, and then inside we do all the finishing work. So here is a photo of type that's not trimmed on the left and the trimmed type on the right. Big difference, right? So that final finishing of the letter is really what finishes it off and makes it. Here is a video of an ampersand being trimmed. And I'll be doing a small little demo of hand trimming. So we have this specialized tool that Scott Moore designed, and then he let us have his for a while so we could build ours. because it's really nice to have it on the Lazy Susan and be able to get at an angle very easily with your tools. Okay, so then after we've made the type, we take it in on the Vandercook and we proof. And as you can see there, we're proofing with the carbon paper. And so, because the name of my company is Virgin Wood Type because it's never been inked. So again, we proof, but it's still never been inked. And then after it's done, the type is all examined to see if everything's type high, if all the hand trims are right, if there's a bad something, and if that's the case, we put a dot on the letter, goes in the hell box and needs to get remade. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about what I had been pondering for a couple years, which was making chromatic type. This is, so, I think we've all sort of seen the Holy Grail, of the page chromatic book. I've seen the book itself many times. The one I had seen the most is the one that's at the Geri Library in Rochester. Since I'm in Rochester, that's the one I'm going to look at. But I just wondered at it and just loved it, So it's always, here's some more samples of some chromatic type. And I just, was I going to be good enough at making wood type? And I'm going to put a little aside here because to me, page is the ultimate of wood type makers. Their type is the best. It is beautifully made. It's just the best. They did the most fantastical stuff. And when you look through their catalogs, you can see that. And I swear, I think some of the type they made, they didn't really ever make it. They just made it for the catalog to say, see what we can do, kind of thing. So then I'm very involved. I used to be the president of the board, and I'm still very involved in at least building the wood type collection at our local community letterpress studio in Rochester. And so we have acquired a number of wood type collections that are absolutely phenomenal. And so this is one of the fonts that's at the center. So I was very aware of this because this is ornate number 1 in the single color, or ornate number 1 in the chromatic wood type also. So that's part of why we chose this letter form, is because we had a proof of every single letter, at least the one color of it. So that was the beginning of it, was okay, well, that's that. We're going to make a proof. Jim drew it. And then we went through many prototypes. And here's a bad prototype sitting here with me here. And part of the whole prototyping process was also proving that this was my husband's theory, which was that the chromatic type was all made with one pattern. Because, I'm going to have to drink something, sorry. So that the one pattern gets locked into the machine, and we're cutting both letters from the one pattern. And so when you look at this pattern, and I think when I go down further, you'll see this. Here's just some of the, how we went about. So we cut many of the letter to be able to build up the height on the pattern. And so there you can see, I don't know whether you can see the different heights, and I also have it here, and I think I have it displayed here also. So those are all the different layers that we have. It was also designed, and that's part of why I chose a really I've learned a lot about making type after making it for so long, and about the ratio of the size of the pattern to the size of the type we're making. So we only make the chromatic in one size, and it's based on that. When we're cutting with the big bit, the follower we use goes around and it doesn't go down into the hole of where, it has to go to make the other part of the letter. And so we were just I was trying to optimize everything, and that's part of why also we did many prototypes. Then this is a photo of, the chromatic. This is, I know this is one of the prototypes on the press when we were figuring out what we were doing. And there's the letter getting cut. There's a letter once it's been cut, and then here, this is a video of a chromatic letter, and we're showing what's done on the follower to the right, and then what's being cut at the bit. And we tried to have them match up perfectly, but we're not videographers. So this is very picky, and when you're going to see when you get into this next part, this is the really, really tricky part, is when you cut the drips. Because when we go and cut the drips, that's when, if you just bump one little bit to the wrong direction, you've ruined the letter. So that's when we pick up the bit when we go to cut the drip. And so you can see it's, and there it is getting cut. And also I think you can see a little bit by watching this that making chromatic type is not a quick process. The letters take quite a while to make. But so there's getting to look like a chromatic T almost, with the shadow, or the shadow form of the letter. And we spent a lot of time with our prototypes getting exactly what we were doing. Now they're just going around making sure we're cutting the edge of the inner letter, when he was cutting before, they were cutting the edge of the outer letter. And there it is, it's cut. And then this is the final version. So now you're seeing, because I don't think I had any of the chromatic with me, but so you can see the two letters that go up to make the full chromatic font. And then when you print with it, you print two colors and you get the third. And then here is the first two-color proof that I proofed of it. So, and there's the chromatic effect displayed. And then there is the print I have upstairs. And that is, Jim came up with this idea. He wanted to really explore a bunch of the color stuff that goes on with the chromatic and have something that people could see to learn a little something. And also it kind of shows you maybe some combinations work better than others. And actually, sometimes the combination works fine one direction, as in when the letter, it's the thin letter is one color and the shadow is another, but if it's reversed, it doesn't work as well. So, but you can see some of that in the proof. And that is the end of what I'm going to say about making wood type and the making of the chromatic type. But we actually pulled it off and made the first chromatic type that's been made in a long, long time. I don't think the guy is here. And did he tell me? I don't know if I know how to lift this up. Oh, okay. Did you have a question? I think color palette, yes. But as I said, when I was talking about what works, I think the lighter color being the shadow doesn't doesn't come off as well as the more dominant color being the shadow. So it doesn't really matter what you print first in that chromatic print because of just the way it is. You know, we just printed all the yellow, and some of them were the inner letter and some of them were the outer letter, and then we printed all the pink, and it was just like that way all the way through. A hint I can tell you about working with chromatic is use a lot of transparent ink. Somebody sent me an email this week, and I said, at least 50% of your ink should be transparent. It needs it, and I usually, like, if I've printed one set of colors, then when I'm going on to the second color, I draw down across the top of it to see if it's doing what I did, and that proof was all worked out in design, or no, I think Illustrator beforehand, and then we were mixing inks, trying to get the colors just right, because Jim and I did that all together. Because it was Jim's concept, but I'm the more experienced printer and also ink mixer. So we were like, I was messing with the inks for quite a while. Okay, so this, right, I gotta go get stuff on me.
Clip
Right.
that on,
Okay.
and this guy can just,
I might just put it on the table. if
that works just fine.
Okay.
I've got a little overhead of the demo.
Okay, so, you saw a video of what hand trimming is. Now you're gonna see me do hand trimming here, but one of the things I didn't talk about, which is one of the things that happens to all of our type. So you're gonna think I'm a nut. Let's see what I have here. I go around and file. I know these are already been filed, so I'm not filing it, but I go around and file all the letters. It makes a big difference on the Gothics. I kind of like square up the corners a little bit better. And there's, when you're making wood type is wood. It's a living thing. So there's little spots that sort of maybe give you a little resistance or a little something so the follower doesn't follow as well as it should, because I'm not working with this perfection of a material. I'm working with living wood. And we have a thing that, I don't know, we have a thing I call, it gets, the wood gets, it has rough edges, and it has to do with the way the grain is in the wood. And sometimes I can file it smooth, and sometimes it has to go in the hell box. So you'll see a lot of rough edged stuff in the hell box because it's just not savable, and that all has to just do with grain. And it has nothing to do with how it was cut. And I don't know whether the old guys had better wood, their grain was tighter, or I don't know what, but I have problems with that. So I don't know. This shows. Okay, so there's two tools we use in finishing wood type, and these here are custom made, like little punches, and we would go in and punch that into an area, and we have a whole bunch of different depths or whatever that these are, and they're just metal that have been ground on a grinder, and we make these tools all by themselves, and you can see how we sort of color code them so we know what's what when we're working. And then for this, I feel that the easier way to do this is the knife, and we do a lot of work with the knife. Any corner has to be done with a knife. Can't be done with a punch. The punches are more like, we pretty much do like A's and W's with the punches, and some of, whatever seems to work better. So what we do here is we just kind of rock up, and then you come here and we rock up. And that pretty much should do it. And if it's not quite right, we just might just give it a little, and that's it. It's trimmed. And it's not, It's just doing it is what gets you, but you just follow the letter form with the knife. And it's just like a little rock, like that, and a little rock. And then if you really want to accent the point, you just kind of go in and touch the point, and it's done.
This program was recorded on August 25th, 2018 at the Ann Arbor District Library.